My ex-husband is now with the person who gave birth to me, and she's pregnant with a son who will be my brother, and my daughter's brother and uncle. Yes, you heard right. This is a crazy story, and I'll tell you everything that happened. Before I continue with my story, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video. Your support means everything to me, and it helps me continue sharing these real stories that need to be heard. Let me start from the beginning. I'm 28 years old, and until recently, I thought I had the perfect life. I was married to a man I loved deeply. We had 2 beautiful daughters together, and I had what I believed was an incredibly close relationship with my mother. We weren't just mother and daughter, we were best friends. She was there for everything in my life, every ultrasound appointment during my pregnancies, every vacation we took as a family, every milestone with my children. When I traveled, I would always invite her to come with us because I couldn't bear the thought of her being alone while she worked so hard all year. My husband worked in transportation, and his job often required him to work double shifts or even 24-hour periods. I never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted him completely. I trusted both of them completely. The 3 of us had what seemed like a normal, healthy relationship. He was respectful to my mother. She was kind to him. And everything appeared exactly as it should be between a son-in-law and mother-in-law. But here's where everything changed. And I want you to pay close attention because this detail will haunt me forever. One day, my husband decided to upgrade his phone. He bought a new device with settings and configurations he didn't understand, and he asked me to help him set it up and download his apps. This was completely normal. I was always the tech-savvy one in our relationship. He went to work, leaving me alone with his new phone, and I began the process of transferring everything over. I downloaded WhatsApp and started the backup process to restore his conversations and media. Now, I want to be clear about something. I was never the suspicious type. I never checked his phone, never went through his things, never questioned where he was or what he was doing. I trusted him with my whole heart, but as I was doing the backup, purely to help him not lose any important information, something caught my eye. What I saw in that backup changed my life forever. There was a conversation thread between my husband and my mother. At first, I thought it might be something innocent. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me or discussing something about the children. But as I started reading, my blood ran cold. They were talking about being in love with each other. They were discussing how they didn't know what to do about their feelings, how they were worried about how I would react if I found out. There were intimate photos being exchanged, explicit images that no daughter should ever have to see of her own mother. They had been meeting secretly at motels. They had been together multiple times, including in her own home. But it got worse. So much worse. In those messages, I discovered that all those times my husband told me he was working double shifts, staying overnight at work, he was actually with my mother. While I was home alone with our children, thinking my husband was working hard to provide for our family, he was betraying me with the one person I trusted most in the world. I sat there in my house, completely alone, staring at this phone screen, and I felt like my entire world was collapsing. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my family, it was all a lie. The 2 people I loved and trusted most had been living a double life behind my back, and I had been completely oblivious. I need you to understand the magnitude of this betrayal. This wasn't just my husband cheating. This was my mother, the woman who gave birth to me, who raised me, who was supposed to love and protect me, actively participating in the destruction of my marriage and my family. I was shaking as I forwarded all of those conversations to my email. Every single message, every photo, every evidence of their affair. I knew I needed proof, because part of me still couldn't believe what I was seeing. My daughter was going to come home from school soon, and I had to pull myself together. I couldn't let her see me falling apart, even though inside I was completely destroyed. I spent the next 2 days in a state of shock, trying to act normal around my husband while processing what I had discovered. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I would lie in bed next to him, this man who had been betraying me, and I felt sick to my stomach. But I knew I had to be strategic about how I handled this situation. On Saturday, I went to an internet cafe and printed out everything. every conversation, every photo, every piece of evidence. Then I did something that took every ounce of strength I had. I invited both of them to Sunday lunch at my house. Picture this scene. I'm sitting at my dining table with my husband and my mother, the two people who had been betraying me, and they have no idea that I know everything. I placed all those printed conversations on the table in front of them and watched their faces change. My mother's expression was one of complete shock. I don't think she ever imagined I would find out, let alone have concrete proof of everything they had done. My husband just sat there, unable to look me in the eye. And here's what my mother said to me when confronted with the evidence of her betrayal. I'm not to blame. I fell in love with him, and I'm not responsible for any of this. And can you imagine? The woman who gave birth to me, who I had trusted with my deepest secrets, who had been present for every important moment in my adult life, looked me in the eye and refused to take responsibility for destroying my family. That very same day, the same day I confronted them with the evidence, my husband moved out of our home and went to live with my mother. I was left alone with my two young daughters, trying to figure out how to explain to them why their father had suddenly left, why they couldn't see their grandmother anymore, why our entire family structure had imploded overnight. But the story doesn't end there. It gets even more complicated and heartbreaking. For months, I tried to shield my daughters from the truth. I told them simply that their father and I had separated because things weren't working out between us. I couldn't bring myself to tell them that their beloved grandmother, the woman who had been such a constant presence in their lives, was the reason their family fell apart. I went through the legal process of divorce, and thankfully, the judge ruled in my favor regarding our assets. I didn't have to sell our house or my law office to give him his share because of the circumstances of our separation, but the emotional cost was devastating. I cut contact with most of my extended family because they eventually accepted the situation. What started as outrage and support for me gradually shifted to a normalized acceptance of my mother and ex-husband as a couple. They began inviting both of them to family events as if nothing had happened, as if this was just a normal relationship transition instead of a devastating betrayal. I stopped attending family gatherings because I couldn't bear the thought of seeing them together, being forced to witness their relationship, having to pretend that everything was okay when my world had been turned upside down. And then, just this week, I received news that has reopened all of these wounds and created an entirely new level of complexity to this nightmare. My mother is pregnant. She's 50 years old, and she's carrying my ex-husband's child. Let me explain to you the absolutely mind-bending family dynamics this creates. This baby will be my sibling because it's my mother's child. But this same baby will also be my daughter's sibling, because it's their father's child. My daughters will have a sibling who is also their uncle or aunt. This child will be born into the most complicated, twisted family situation you can imagine. My daughters already know they're going to have a new sibling because my ex-husband told them their father is going to be a dad again. They're excited about having a baby brother or sister, but they don't know that this baby is going to be born to their grandmother. They don't understand that their new sibling is actually going to be living with grandma, or that the family relationships are completely upside down. And here's what's eating me alive. I don't know how to explain this to my children. How do you tell young girls that their grandmother, who used to be one of the most important people in their lives, destroyed their family? How do you explain that the baby they're excited to meet is being born into a situation that defies every normal family structure? I'm struggling with feelings I never thought I'd have to confront. I feel guilty because I know I should be able to love this innocent child. It will be my sibling after all. But this baby represents the most painful period of my life. Every time I think about this child, I'm reminded of the betrayal, the lies, the destruction of everything I held dear. I work as a lawyer, and I've been able to maintain my professional life and provide for my daughters. We're financially stable, and in many ways we're better off without him. But emotionally, this situation continues to devastate me. The woman who gave birth to me, who I trusted completely, who was my best friend and confidant, is now carrying the child of the man who was supposed to be my life partner. She's 50 years old. This is considered a high-risk pregnancy, and she's 4 months along. I've had to accept that the mother I knew is dead to me. I can't and won't forgive what she did. Some people might say I should find a way to move past this, to forgive for the sake of family, but there are some betrayals that are simply unforgivable. This is one of them. My daughters still see their father, but only at my mother's house. I refuse to have any contact with him, and I won't allow him in my home. The children don't understand why they can't see their grandmother anymore, and eventually, I'm going to have to find a way to explain the truth to them in an age-appropriate way. As I'm telling you this story, I realize how completely surreal and devastating this situation is. I'm living through something that feels like the plot of a twisted soap opera. Except it's my real life. It's my children's real life. It's a situation that no person should ever have to navigate. The hardest part is the isolation. I can't talk to my family about this because they've normalized the situation. I can't talk to my mother because she's the source of the betrayal. I've had to process this trauma largely on my own, trying to be strong for my daughters while dealing with feelings of anger, betrayal, grief, and guilt. I'm sharing this story because I need people to understand that sometimes the people closest to you, the people you trust most, are the ones capable of inflicting the deepest wounds. I'm sharing this because I hope that somehow, putting this truth out into the world will help me find a way to heal. This situation has taught me that family relationships can be more fragile and more complicated than we ever imagine. It's taught me that trust, once broken in such a fundamental way, may never be repaired. It's taught me that sometimes the people we love most are capable of the most devastating betrayals. As I navigate this impossible situation, I'm trying to focus on my daughters and building a life for us that's healthy and stable. I'm trying to figure out how to explain their complicated family dynamics in a way that doesn't damage them psychologically. I'm trying to process my own trauma while being the parent they need me to be. The pregnancy announcement has brought all of these emotions rushing back. I thought I was healing. I thought I was moving forward. But this news has reopened every wound and created new ones I didn't even know were possible. I want to thank you for listening to my story. This is a real account shared by one of our followers from another platform, who reached out because they needed to be heard, needed to know they weren't alone in facing an impossible situation. If you're going through your own family trauma, your own betrayal, please know that your feelings are valid and that healing is possible, even when the situation seems impossible to overcome. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others who might need to hear this story. Leave a comment below if you've experienced family betrayal, or if you have advice for navigating complicated family dynamics. Your support and engagement help us continue sharing these important stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply tell our truth and know that somewhere, someone else understands exactly what we're going through.